When FDR took over the White House in 1933, America was in dire straits. 2 straight decades of Republican rule culminated in the Great Depression and had decimated what remained of the middle class. The super-rich dominated our political system. Wall Street was a giant deregulated casino. Workers had no union rights, and unemployment was rampant. And to make matters worse, many of the protections that we take for granted today, like, for example, Social Security, did not yet exist. So FDR went ahead and oversaw what remains, with the probable exception of the Civil War, the most radical transformation of American democracy in our history, the New Deal. He signed the Wagner Act, giving workers the right to collectively bargain with their bosses. He created the Works Progress Administration, the WPA, and the Civilian Conservation Corps, the CCC, which provided jobs for millions of unemployed Americans and made the government the employer of last resort when capitalism failed. He created the Securities and Exchange Commission and signed the Glass-Steagall Act, which clamped down on Wall Street gambling and made the banking industry boring, safe, and sustainable. He also signed the Social Security Act, which created the backbone of the modern-day welfare state and for the first time made it possible for all Americans to retire with a guaranteed pension. But the New Deal was bigger than just a collection of acts and agencies. What made it so important in the long run was that the New Deal created the preconditions for the existence of a large American middle class. You see, a middle class is not a natural thing in a deregulated capitalist economy. Middle classes have to be created with regulations, unions, and smart trade policy. In its natural state, capitalism is a lot like feudalism. Small sliver of super rich who rule over everyone else, followed by another slightly larger sliver of middle-class managers and professionals, what you would call the middle class. And then the vast majority of people fall into the category of the working poor. They're basically serfs. They have no power whatsoever. That's what's normal in capitalism. This is what American society looked like before FDR became president. But after FDR's time in office, American society was totally different. Republicans and Democrats agreed to follow the basic policies set forth in the New Deal, and even expanded on them, as the Republican Party and Dwight Eisenhower bragged about in their 1956 re-election platform. They also supported sensible trade policies that prevented jobs from being shipped overseas in the name of corporate so-called free trade. For decades, this New Deal consensus, as historians refer to it, reigned supreme. And not coincidentally, so too did the American middle class. From the end of World War II until the 1980s, American society was remarkably equal. And then Reagan became president, and he and his Republican buddies began undoing the New Deal piece by piece. They gutted union rights. They slashed the social safety net. They deregulated big business. Bill Clinton got in on the act, too, when he repealed the Glass-Steagall Act, allowed Wall Street to mix with commercial banking, a decision that led directly to the crash of 2008. As a result, America has been going backwards ever since 1981. Our country now looks more like it did in 1933 than it did in 1973. Yes, we have programs like Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security that we didn't have back then, but thanks to 30-plus years of Reaganomics by presidents of both political parties, wealth inequality is once again soaring to record levels. Union membership is the lowest it's been in decades, and the super rich are sucking up all the income gains made since the crash. Oh, and thanks to Citizens United, the economic royalists can buy any politician they want. A lot of people understand what's at stake, but the man best equipped to handle this situation, in my opinion, is Bernie Sanders. If elected president, Bernie would do what FDR did in 1933, restore union rights, regulate Wall Street and break up the big banks, and expand the social safety net. And with a Democratic Congress behind him, he could probably go even further. How do I know this? Because I know Bernie, and he spent his entire career fighting for the core principle behind the New Deal, creating the type of society in which the middle class can flourish. This isn't some radical socialist idea either. It's what guided American society from the 1930s until the 1980s. And it works. And as president, Bernie Sanders would make it our #1 priority once again.